How many times have you seen me pyramiding where it does that? That's the benefit of knowing how to pyramid correctly with the right draw and liquidity. Every new position is fortified by the previous ones. As long as you're entering them in the upper 50% of the intended range where you think it's going to reach for, I have to have all my entries up there. Because once it starts to move on the other lower half and goes below equilibrium, if I'm short, and everything I'm saying here, you reverse if you're long or being bullish. You want to be trying to doing all your entries and pyramid entries in the lower half of the intended draw and liquidity. That implied dealing range where you're entering and where you think it's going to go to, the terminus, the draw and liquidity, that implied dealing range, it's not there yet. It's not been manifest in the chart yet. You're believing and holding the trade with the idea that it's going to do that. But if you're long, every one of your position entries, whether it's the initial entry or any pyramided entries, has to occur below equilibrium if you're long, or above equilibrium if you're short. Because as soon as we cross that midpoint, that's it. And why is that? Because if it crosses equilibrium, if I'm wrong, it's going to reverse there and take out my lowest level pyramid. And if that takes that out, I'm closing the fucking trade. I'm not going to let it take anymore. So am I going to lose? Only on that first, well, not first, but the last pyramid entry, that partial addition to my short or long, that one will lose money, but it's offset by all the previous ones. The folks that are not equipped mathematically, they don't understand rudimentary math. They don't grasp that by having sound money management, understanding that consistency matters, and doing things mathematically that are going to have an outcome that's measurable and statistically probable, the end result is almost guaranteed. I'm not afraid of losing. And when you say, oh man, you put these position sizes on so big, how can you relax? Because I'm only really risking the last pyramid entry. Because if that one goes bust, if it moves against that, and it takes out, if I look at that last pyramid entry as an individual trade in and of itself, if the idea around that trade melts down, like there was no other entry prior to that one, I may have a position that's 30 contracts, 40 contracts deep, but that last one's only like 5 contracts. But I erase all the logic and ignore the previous position entries, because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm only giving a fuck about that last new entry that's pyramided in. If the context and framework around that last pyramided entry, if that breaks down, I'm killing the entire trade that's still there. So am I losing money? Only on that small little piece of that last pyramid entry. So it's taking some of my unrealized profit away, but I'm banking on all of the realized gain on all the things that are still profitable above it, if I'm short, or below if I'm long. And for some of you that are brand new, or if you don't know English real well, that didn't make any bit of sense to you. But if you look at what I'm doing and study how I'm doing my pyramid entries, unless it does a complete 100% run aggressively and doesn't allow me at all to get out, my largest position is entered first. Go in with 10, then go in with 8 or 6, and then go in with 3, and then go in with 1. Well, if the last one I went in with was 1 contract and it moves against me, and say that last entry was on a fair value gap, but it takes out 3 PD arrays that would be otherwise viewed as a means of supporting the idea that that trade's good. See, I'm not looking at the idea of my initial entry has to hold true. No, fuck that. I want to make sure I'm not giving up all that unrealized gain, because I had the biggest portion of my trade on first. See, I'm building a pyramid with the largest base at the bottom. And then as I add to it, it's going to be smaller in scale, in number of contracts. So that's why and how I can take one trade and do 10 times what Algo Box Vinny Boy does in one clip